Stub all torqued, he's about to pop a cork. Mad as hell, but cute as a cub. Weekly Wine with Stub.
Hello, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Weekly Wine with Stub. This week we will be celebrating America on Independence Day, and we're sipping a nice little rosé from nowhere other than the Old Dominion. Quick programming note, this will be the last episode of Weekly Wine with Stub until probably October, as I take a little time off from the weekly show to work on some feature videos, a little more writing for the website, and a little bit to enjoy summer with the rib. Once again, thanks for joining me. Let's get right to today's show. On July 4th, 1776, our forefathers signed a declaration that the United States was and would be an independent nation. This document is the basis of our shared values of liberty and self-determination, even all these years later. The 4th of July holiday as of late has come to mean cookouts and time at the lake and summer vacation and fireworks, of course. But let's all take this opportunity today to pause for a few brief moments and reflect on all that we are, and more importantly, all that we can be. The Declaration of Independence is a masterfully written document that embodies a spirit of liberty also evident in our Constitution. Together, these documents have served as a roadmap for our national success and will continue to guide us in the years to come. We do, of course, bear great blemishes on our nation's history. Slavery, unequal rights, questionably motivated wars, and internment, just to name a few. Not everyone in the U.S. has enjoyed the great promise of our nation throughout the entire life of our nation. And if history repeats itself as it is said, we will acquire more blemishes in the future. But that doesn't mean we should quit trying to live up to the principles our founders handed down to us. Because even in the midst of turmoil and national missteps, we have always been on the path to become greater. A path that was first charted with the Declaration of Independence. Over the years, we've heard many politicians say, "America can be great again." Well, I'm here to tell you, those politicians are wrong. America's greatness always has been and has not faltered. We are greater today than we were yesterday and can be even greater tomorrow. And it is not, as I mentioned before, because we've always done everything right as a nation, because we haven't. But it is because we have always strived to be better and to spread wider the blessings of liberty, be it domestically, as happened last week with the Supreme Court same-sex marriage rulings, or internationally, as we did in helping defeat tyranny and oppression during 2 world wars. Now, over the last several years, our politics have become increasingly vitriolic and mean-spirited, on and from all sides. The national debate has been dominated by venomous attacks on the other side, be it in Congress, in the media, or more recently in social networking. Disagreements between those who hold differing views are normal occurrences in the course of our existence and should be embraced. But they do not have to divide us to the point that we can no longer be respectful of and to one another. So as we reflect today on our history and the great promise our nation still holds, let's take a moment to also remember that even when we disagree with each other over policy, we all hold close the values of democracy and liberty that were handed down to us in our Declaration of Independence 237 years ago this day. This week's wine is the 2011 Glen Manor Rosé from right here in the Old Dominion. I only thought it appropriate to pick a Virginia wine for today's show to honor the author of our Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, who several hundred years ago was convinced that wine grapes would thrive in the Old Dominion. He didn't live to see it, but TJ, if you're watching anywhere right now, you were correct, sir. Yeah, on the nose of this wine, I'm getting a slight hint of fruit. I can't even really liken to anything specifically. There's a little hint of mint in there as well, and yes, I am not crazy, maybe a little touch of bacon fat. Yes, in a rosé. Wow. On the palate, I do get a little fruit. I'm going to liken it to a very not super sweet strawberry. The acid on this wine is firm enough to hold it together, but is not overpowering. I get that bacon fat I talked about on the nose, but not as a super big bacony flavor, which would be maybe a little odd in this wine, but more as just a slight hint of smokiness that shouldn't be confused for wood, though. It's not an oakiness. It's definitely just a hint of smokiness on this. Wow. This wine's just got a nice medium body to it. The acid plays together. You can get a little hint of tannins in this, but everything just works together beautifully. The fruit is not super overpowering. Definitely this is a dry rosé, as rosé should be, by the way. Wonderful, wonderful little glass of wine here. Now, as far as pairings, definitely just some cheese and a nice warm summer day on the patio would be great. This wine would go great with summer salads. Probably do it definitely with some grilled chickens. I'm going to throw grilled pork chops in there. Would probably pair beautifully with this wine. It's easy drinking, but I wouldn't call it simple. But I think it's broad enough that it could pair with a variety of different meals. I may myself, actually, if there's any left when the rib gets home, take a sip of this with my salmon with pesto that I'm making for dinner tonight. Visiting our nation's capital can be a pride-inducing and enriching experience. And the week of July 4th is a popular and busy tourist time in the region, so I thought I'd take a few moments to give you a few helpful tips for your visit to Washington, D.C. Number one, getting around. Driving. Don't do it. We have literally the worst traffic in the entire country, and parking in the city is dreadful, difficult, and frustrating at best. If you're driving to your vacation in Washington, D.C., get to where you're staying, park the car, and study the Metro map. As far as the Metro, let me give you a few tips to those of you who aren't necessarily accustomed to using a subway system. Escalators. Stand to the right, walk to the left. This is just how it's done, and you should know this. Metro turnstiles. Don't pull your Metro card out of the slot and immediately stop to wait for others. This is a fast-paced city with important people doing important things. Get the hell out of their way. When you're riding the train, screaming, "What stop do we get off at?" through the crowded train to your traveling companions doesn't really accomplish anything. They don't remember and or can't see the map on the wall of the train car any better than you can. Know which stop you're supposed to get off and listen to the driver, who will always announce the next stop. Now, the National Mall is the hub of any vacation to Washington, D.C. And despite being able to clearly see the entire mall from one end to the other, the distance from the Capitol steps to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial is 2 miles. And it seems way longer than that when you're toting 13 kids, 6 elderly people, and enough gear in a stroller to equip a short jungle expedition. And don't forget, the National Mall was built on a swamp, and it's summer, so it's going to be hot. And if it happens to rain, you're going to think you've actually went on a jungle expedition. So drink lots of water. And also remember that the path along either side of the mall is a combination of dirt and gravel. You should wear appropriate footwear. As far as visiting things, the Smithsonian's Air and Space, Natural History, and American History museums are fantastic. But don't forget the art museums along the mall either. Get a little culture in your life and spend through a couple of them. They're generally less crowded and offer a great museum experience. While you're taking in the monuments, also don't forget to leave the more beaten path of the mall to see the Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Martin Luther King Jr. memorials. They're amazing. Also make a point to get over to Arlington in Virginia to see the Marine Corps War Memorial. Not only is this the finest of all memorials and monuments in the region, but it also provides one of the best views of the city. And while you're in Arlington, you also might want to see Arlington National Cemetery. Remember though, you'll be doing a lot of walking, and the gently rolling hills are way more challenging than they look, especially in summer when it's hot. Also remember when visiting the cemetery that these grounds should be respected as our national shrine. And when a funeral procession passes along the route you're walking, stop moving and be quiet until it passes. In that vein, just in case we happen to run into each other while you're visiting, let me tell you this. I will absolutely dress you down if you decide to cool off by wading in the fountain at the World War II Memorial. Parents, you'll feel even worse if you let your kids in the fountain, because I am more than happy to embarrass your entire effing family by calling you out for it. In that same vein, the whole no playing ball warning signs that are there when you visit the Marine Corps War Memorial means something. Because if this particular Marine happens to see someone playing ball, throwing a frisbee, or, oh, help us, hippies with hacky sacks doing it, he will indeed let you know you're not supposed to be doing that. And probably not in the nicest effing way. And finally, if you're tired of traipsing up and down the National Mall, don't forget other possible trips outside the city you might find enjoyable. Mount Vernon is a nice diversion and is just 16 miles south of Washington. So if you're lucky, you can be there in an hour. The Smithsonian's Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum near Dulles International Airport is pretty cool too. A little longer drive though. And if you want to take a little longer 2-hour drive, Thomas Jefferson's Monticello makes for a rewarding day trip as well. There you go. I hope these tips will help you if and when you decide to visit Washington, D.C. If you do, give me a little ringing. We can get together for a glass of wine. In the week ahead, well, I'll be doing some projects around the house, cooking out a little bit, enjoying a frosty beverage with neighbors as they come to call in the garage. And yeah, I'll probably be reading news, but you won't know about that. As I mentioned at the top of the show, this is the last episode of Weekly Wine with Stub until October. Yeah, that's right. Once again, taking off a couple of months to catch up on some other things and enjoy a little bit of the summer. In the meantime, don't forget to follow me on the Twitters. Follow The Rib on the Twitters. Give Cork Envy a like on the Facebooks. And head on over to corkenvy.com and buy yourself a t-shirt, folks. Come on, I'm begging you. Buy a t-shirt or two. Yeah. All right, it's been great doing this Series 3 with you, these 10 episodes. I hope you're enjoying them more and more each week. Thank you for joining me every week. And until next time, until the fall, stop coveting, start drinking.